So we want to say top of the morning to Sir John. How are you this morning, sir?
Well, I'm actually got a bit of a head cold. Apart from that, everything is beautiful.
It's summer. It's hot.
It's hot, it's sticky, but guess what? It's cup match time, and that's what really puts some life into us and makes us feel like, it's the middle of our summer, and it's time to celebrate the goodness, whatever that is, and try to sort of just have a few bit time that we all can get together and really share each other's spirit.
So, John, quite a few things have happened in Bermuda since we last spoke. First, we had the unfortunate incident up at Frizzle's Hill.
Yes.
We had the situation up at Scholar Hill.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on what Bermuda is going through?
Well, Trevor, you did an interview with me maybe a month or two ago. I talk about the impact that is of our economic, social life is having on our young people. We get the impression as you walk around Bermuda, everything is beautiful, houses are painted nice, grass, lawns are cut, hedges are trimmed, nice cars sitting out front of the house. But what's inside that house, Trevor, is what counts. People can't pay their bills. Too many people living in one household. Too many people having conflicts with stress being created as a result of confined conditions. We've got ourselves into they call it a cul-de-sac. In other words, we're down at an edge. That we've got to try to open it up again so that people will feel they got some type of freedom. And that's when I had to do that, Trevor. People fail to realize the fact that back in 1982, when I became premier, the country was in a similar type of position. And we opened up the system. We did housing because we had no tourism. We had no international business. And we built infrastructure. And we involved the local people, contractors, and so forth to build. And the banks loaned money. Bermudans can't borrow money from the banks very much anymore. You can borrow money to buy a car. But you try borrowing money to build a house or to renovate a house, it's almost impossible. So what we've done is we've allowed the country to really deprive the individual Bermudian of the benefits of what makes a society work is the relationship between the commercial sector and the domestic sector. People who work, save money, want to do something. Nowadays, you're required to have this big down payment. By the time you get through having to meet your cost of living, you don't have a chance. So we've got to find a way to reverse that, Trevor. You can talk all you want about you can hand out money to this person, you're going to give a person increase in pension. Those just deal with inflation. It has nothing to do with trying to give people the comfort I can now own something I can pass down to my children. I can have some hope for the future. So we've got to get the future back into Bermuda. We present now have a worse. Our past was better. Our present's a mess. Our future has to be the promise. And the way to get that promise, Trevor, is to retool the society to do that. The wealth is here. It's just that nobody really is figuring out how to get it done. I was charged with that responsibility when I became premier. And that's why you see me running again, because I'm saying our people at the level of income that does now not reach a managerial level is somehow or the other suffering, and their children and their grandchildren are suffering because they've got health issues, they've got food issues, they've got education issues, they've got image issues, and they've got stress, psychological issues. A society is not supposed to be that way, particularly a small place like us that has enormous wealth all around it. And yet we are still seeing poverty at its worst, and therefore stress at its worst. Therefore, people attacking each other. And Trevor, I said this some time ago about the black male, and people criticized me. And then they realized the fact that I was warning them then. And Trevor, that was 30 years ago. I was warning them then that we're heading in that direction. And I've been trying over the years to warn people that this is the direction that we're heading into. Now we're here. Now we're here with the crisis. Whether we like it or not, for every one Bermudian, there are 60,000 Americans. So you can see what proportional representation. Per capita, we are in deep trouble. We are in deep trouble. And I don't see the people in authority doing anything about it. And I'm not going to blame the civil servants. They only can work with the tools they're given. They're given the tools of making sure that, first of all, their salary levels on, when you look at salary levels of people working in the public sector, are not excessive. But their budgets have been cut. So there's less people and less resources to work with. And therefore, you're asking them to do more and more as the problems of society become more and more. So you're asking to do something with less, but do more. It won't work, Trevor. So I am for a new way forward. That's why the independent movement is there to achieve that objective. Lay out a plan, national plan. Lay out a plan that says this is what we're going to do to bring back the ingredients of development of Bermuda that serves all the people and not just a few people at the top. And I'm not just talking about politicians, but people coming in, getting jobs, getting PRCs, being able to buy the Bermudans home because Bermudan can't borrow money from the bank. And what kind of society have we allowed to happen here? That government was elected by the people, for the people, and of the people, to look after people. It's not happening, Trevor. And so people can get upset because I'm my age and still getting involved with politics. Age has nothing to do with it. What it has to do with it is our conscience. A man doing something stupid, whether he's 18 years old or whether he's 80 years old, the act is still the act. And that, to me, is what it's all about is. Unfortunately, in our movement now to bring about the independence process, Trevor, we have young people, in their 20s, coming forward to be candidates. And then we have people my age coming forward to be candidates. So we have a whole spectrum. And the black and the white, they represent the demographics of Bermuda, which is really a mosaic. All different, male, female, black, white, rich, poor. So when we sit around and talk about Bermuda and Bermuda's future, we have to sort of see how we then can make sure that everybody shares in the benefits that Bermuda has to offer, not just a few people sharing into it and enjoying it and so forth. But that's what's happening right now.
What and when will Bermuda get more information on who is joined up and is going to represent?
We will start rolling up people just around Cup Match time.
After Cup Match?
Yeah, maybe just before.
Okay. But
definitely after Cup Match. We'll start to roll out the candidates that we have. And we still have people coming forward. We still need more, but we've pretty well got a nice slate of people already. And we've got people who are, getting themselves cleared to what we tell them, look, you're an individual running. You're not running for a party. You're running on your own. We can help you like you get help from anybody else in the community, your parents, your friends, and everything else. That's what we'll do. But you're running as an independent member. You're not running as a party member. So you have to do a lot of work to get elected. And you have to be able to be prepared to commit yourself to the integrity of what the country needs in order to take and serve the greater good of the people.
So, John, what characteristics of leadership are most needed in Bermuda today?
Well, leadership and the characteristics of leadership. Well, we're taught in the Bible, in fact, the Ten Commandments, how to conduct ourselves. And if you take it in contemporary form, we also have been taught that ethics, honesty, rule of law are very, very important. You have to sort of defend the right and protect people from frivolousness that happens because you can mar somebody, particularly in a position of authority. So the leadership has to be where you are honest. If you stand up for something, you can verify it, and you can make sure that it has the basis of some good decisions that are made. You can recognize that the role you play in leadership is a role that says, I'm here to serve a purpose. And if your purpose is to serve as a parliamentarian, it's to serve the people's cause and not the party's cause. To serve the best interests of the people and what the people need in order to survive in a society. To build the infrastructure. In other words, you've got to have some knowledge to build an infrastructure that works, that serves people. And that infrastructure is two ways. There's a physical infrastructure, whether it's roads, bridges, buildings, things. And then there's a social infrastructure, which means the fact that you've got to make sure that you have health, education, protection, in other words, a good justice system. You've got to make sure that your ethics are understood, that you will. And by the way, Trevor, I had those things when I was premier. I said if anybody was ever caught doing something untoward, illegally or immorally that affected the affairs of government, they were to be dismissed. And I did dismiss the minister because of conflict of interest. I did that in my own business, Trevor, and that's why my business survived. That's why my business is 62 years old today, because everybody knew that the ethical part of business was very, very important. And I'm not talking about hearsay and people going out and say, well, so-and-so said so-and-so. Give me the evidence and I will act. And I say, because ultimately the buck stops here. And if I don't have the evidence, don't come to me with some hearsay. Come to me with the evidence and I will act on the evidence.
Immediately.
And that to me is leadership. Leadership is not being frivolous or it's having critical thinking, critical action, but defined action that allows you to be able to make good decisions in the best interest of whatever your responsibility is.
Are leaders born, or can they be developed, or both?
Trevor, I think I was born. I can't define myself. Am I a leader? I just do my best, that's all. I mean, this word leader is, I think you threw it up as though somehow or the other there's some miraculous formula for being.
But you got leaders and you got followers, so a leader is a gift.
A leader,
from God.
well,
Would you say?
a leader is a person who's has a responsibility or given a responsibility, or expected to fulfill a responsibility that has the capacity to understand what that responsibility is, have capacity to charter a course to make sure that that responsibility is brought to a logical and functioning conclusion. And so people have different leadership capacities. Some people have it in biology, some people have it in chemistry, some people have it in physical construction. So, the word leadership is not just a single word a singularity. It's a plurality. And it covers a whole spectrum. And some people can do good. Some people can be a good farmer. They're a leader in the farming industry. Some people could be a good garbage collector. They know how to take and make sure the garbage is taken up, is done. And so we get this idea that somehow the other leaders are supposed to be this up on a pedestal, looking down and dictating the affairs of everybody. And that's where things have gone wrong. You have this party system that says we got a leader, and that leader is going to take and protect the party, make sure that people adhere to the party philosophy. And the end result is they lose sight of the fact that they're not there to serve the party, they're there to serve the people. And that's why I think things have gone wrong. And now it's become so ingrained into us that we think it's normal. We think it's normal. And it's destroying countries across the globe. Bermuda's the first one of the first ones in contemporary times looking to change that. We're looking to say, it's time to wake up. It's time to take charge of our own responsibility. It's time for every citizen to be a leader in whatever they do and participate in that change so that we then become known as a country of leadership. Trevor, we were to a stage, at one stage, everybody came, picked on whatever Bermuda was doing. We demonstrated a lot of leadership in Bermuda. In tourism, people came to see how we did our tourism. People came to see how we ran Bermuda. And people came to see how we set up our international business. And at one stage, in 1995, we were considered the rich country in the world because we actually demonstrated leadership. Now we're going backwards. We're going down the scale. And then what's happening now is we've lost sight of what our purpose is to our people, Don't get confused. There's a lot of wealth in Bermuda. But guess what? That wealth is now preserved for a few Bermudians who might have the retail business or might have the, but most of your businesses, whether banking, insurance, and whatever serves you, is now owned by foreigners and taking the money out of here. Power company, all going out of Bermuda. Have we demonstrated leadership? Yes. Leadership to serve the foreigner, but we haven't done any leadership to serve the Bermudian. And that's why I'm trying to, my last hurrah is to try to create an institution that says we're here to serve the people and not the party, and not, we have to continue to serve the foreigner because he's our bread and butter now. He's got us now. He has us dangling now, whether we like it or not. He's got the puppet strings. We've got to find a way how to take and release ourselves from those, but at the same time, not to chase him away, but to make sure that we ourselves get some benefit from it. And all I've seen has been a giveaway, and I haven't seen any benefits to Bermudian. If not, we wouldn't have the social issues we have today. I once wrote an article, I wish I could go and find it. It was called The Hustle. I said, when a society, you can define a society almost when it's doing well, because people can get hustles. In other words, they're not full. Everybody can't be fully employed. Everybody can't get jobs and everything else. But they could go out around and do painting for people. They can go around and do lawns for people. They can go around and do work or get. Nowadays, you can't get a hustle. Everybody says, oh, I've hired this contractor. And by the way, most of those contractors, if you look at them, they came Bermuda, got status, married to Bermudian, or they got PRCs. And where's the Bermudian? He's trying to work for them, and then they bring in foreigners to work for them, and before you know it, the Bermudian has been pushed out, and the foreigner has been allowed to take over. Now, it's so common and ordinary now that we just think it should be okay.
Normal.
But it's destroying the very fabric. And the fabric of our society as people who've been here, who try to preserve Bermuda as a as a functioning place of parents who worked hard and grandparents who worked hard and who had businesses. Today we have no businesses. And if they are, they're run by foreigners. So we've given a consent of the Bermudian destruction, the Bermudian, I don't care if black or white, destruction. We've consented to that because we're the ones that keep pushing the vote to those people who are allowing that type of thing to happen without any recourse. And you know, you only have a choice once every 5 years. So you lock yourself into the next 5 years. And if the journey continues after a while, they just push us all off the cliff. And that's why you have people leaving Bermuda. That's why you have people ending up in casemates or West End. That's why you have people just simply giving up and going home and watching TV, and they read the newspaper and see the misery, and they realize the fact, well, if enough people are miserable, I'm miserable too, so it's okay. But it's not okay. It is not okay. What's okay, what will be okay is when we change that and start putting the face of Bermuda back to where it belongs.
You mentioned Belco. What's your thoughts on the situation that we're facing with Belco?
Travel we bought on ourselves. Larry Burchell and I wrote several articles. You go back and read the newspaper. When Belco was bought, we were against this project. We wrote articles. We tried to talk to the RA, Regulatory Authority. They wouldn't hear it. We said what these people, Algonquin was trying to do was going to destroy Bermuda's asset. That was an asset. It didn't own a lot of money. It had Bermudian shareholders. And the very money that they're spending by borrowing it, we could have borrowed that money and built. We could have built 2 LNG plants. One could have been built in St. George's, the other one built up at Morgan's Point. The boat comes in, drops the LNG at St. George's and drops the other supply at Morgan's Point. And then we would have been able to get the power back into the grid system. And we could have cleaned up all of Pembroke. Cleaned it up. They've borrowed money and we're still in a mess. And all they keep telling us is they got to keep raising the rates and paying people to manage something. But look at the results, Trevor. It's abysmal failure because the basis, the ground, and by the way, I served on that board when I was very young. First black members to serve on the board. A lot of powerful people on there. I try to make representation then that the company needs to be brought up to date. But everybody was always interested in getting the dividends out. Now, that if there's any dividends or any management service fees, keep in mind there are 2 things, Trevor. People get the idea that the only thing coming out of these things is dividends. But if you are a principal, you could be getting a service management fee. I'm not sure whether that's happening or not. In other words, we will charge you for advice and counsel and everything else that comes as part of written over contract. And so they don't need to get dividends out of it. They own the thing. They can get it by a secondary way. You know, it's not devious. It's practiced quite ordinarily practiced, but it's the extent in which it's done. So they can let this thing ride on and ride on, but it doesn't take away the pollution. It doesn't take away by the way, this is physical pollution of trying to burn oil in a gas burner. The noise pollution, vibrations that happen that affect people. And Trevor, let me tell you, I said it once before, nobody picked it up. When I lived in Pembroke, over Pembroke Marsh over there, and when I became premier, having had that background of what that pollution does to people, I did a survey, casual survey, it wasn't any sort of, to find out how many people at casemates lived within that, those casemates now, it's now
Westgate.
Westgate. I found out that a lot of the people came from around that area, Parsons Road and Middletown, Frisbell's Hill and North Hill. I think that burning all that garbage and all that lead and all this oils and everything else, and they're putting that in the atmosphere, affected people. When we stopped that burning, the amount of people going from those areas, all of a sudden you realize had diminished. And people, you do a profile now, you'll see that from different demographics of the island. But more importantly is, how much of that affected your genetics? Because once anything gets into your blood system, your genetics are in your blood system. And how much of that affects it? And if it's adverse effect, like carcinogens, which will cause cancer, which can cause heart conditions, which can cause all sorts of health issues, which also can alter the genetic gene of a person over time if they're born in there and they grew up there and so forth. Now that person goes off and marries somebody in St. George's or Somerset. Then it affects, it passed that gene along. We don't know the damage that's being done to people. And this is not just Bermuda, but this is the world over. And so some of these health issues that we call, whether we call it diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis or all sorts of things that affect us, they might not be, they could be inherited, but they're inherited by cause that you picked up this inheritance as a result of a thing that happened not only to your parents, but to your happened to your grandparents, happened to your parents, and then happens to you. That you just take it for granted, you know. When you have a slippage, you know, it can be very small, but over time it can be very corrosive. And that's what worries me. This Bermuda should be a well-run, people, everything should be done for the interest of the people. The health, the well-being, the opportunities, their education, their look on life. It's more, Trevor, let's face it, there's about 60,000 here living in Bermuda, roughly. 10,000 foreigners working here and about with work permits and so. So that leaves us down to 50,000. Mm-hmm. You take the school kids out, you take out so up to the age of 20. Mm-hmm. You don't have a lot of people that you need to really look after. We act like we've got this big population of poverty. But because it filters up and down, it gets the impression that it's really big. We have no data, no information. We keep making these statements about all these things, but nobody does the census or the demographic understanding of what's going on. That really, it could be the cause of erosion of our society. Or where do we need to look? What we're doing now is we built a society on handouts. Everybody's getting into the charitable organizational. Get charity for this, not charity for that. Because the government doesn't do it. The government doesn't do it, so the charity becomes the government. We don't want to have a society of handouts. We want a society of hand-ups, give scholarships, motivate people to do things. Young minds that are now being wasted, we want to be able to get them to do things. But instead, we've decided, we'll just get somebody to look after this, somebody to look after that. The old age people, now they tell me that they might, I don't know if it's true or not, but I find it very strange that they're closing down certain sections of the wellness center down in Devonshire. But where are these people going to go? They're going to put them in places that have, you can find the staff in a consolidated institution. But what it has is you almost like saying, we're just going to cover it over so that you can't see it all in one spot because we can't find staff or we don't have the budget. The same problem they got at King Edward, people needing help, and they don't have beds. They don't have sometimes the necessary professional, specialized employ people. They're waiting to find people to work and so forth. They tell me the other day a doctor tried to hire a doctor, and the doctor came to Bermuda. He was on the verge of signing his contract and everything else. He happened to go in the supermarket and to pick up some things and so forth. And when he asked the question, when he picked up a few things to take home, and what they charged him, so he did analysis to find out, Jesus, even the salary they're paying me, I can't afford to take and live off of this salary. Why am I staying here? So he left Bermuda. See, we don't hear these stories.
We're having a lot of nurses at the present that are leaving Bermuda because of not being able to get a raise. They're take home and be paying just like the average Bermudian.
Yep.
Their families are overseas.
That's right.
And it's becoming very difficult to survive and live in Bermuda.
And very seldom now. One time we were very proud of Bermuda, going overseas, becoming nurses, and coming back home. You go in the hospital now, you can see for yourself the people that's coming from Jamaica or from the Caribbean or which is part of the Caribbean, or from the Philippines. We're not producing. And if you go to see a doctor, how many doctors you see that are Bermudian these days? Because Bermudian, if he can be a doctor, he can be an actuary or he can be something else. And so, and I don't blame the Bermudian for doing that. But we should be also looking at helping other people. But instead, we are piling them up in homes. Nothing is being passed on by the parents. By the time the parents sell off their houses and then go into rest homes or go into places and what they have to pay for just to be in a rest home for the rest of their lives, eats up everything they've got. We just have built this inflationary, depressing, and also dysfunctioning society for the Bermudian. And, but because we see the foreigner, I bet you anybody, a lot of the boats on the water are now owned by them. They take their vacations and go back home and where they came from and have their home somewhere else. They know how to take and live. And we're just trying to live just to make a living.
How do we fix? How do we fix? We have, like you said, we got high costs for energy, high food costs, high accommodation. I saw. Well, excuse me. I saw in the newspapers I saw an ad just on social media for a one-bedroom, a studio, not even one bedroom, a studio for $1,800.
Yeah.
I remember the studio used to be $1,000, or a bedroom, an apartment was based on $1,000.
Trevor, supply and demand. Supply and demand.
How do we fix it?
You fix it by. I've said I know how to fix it. I said I know how to build probably 1,000 houses within 5 years. 1,000 accommodations in 5 years. It took me a while to figure out how to get it done. But I'm not going to throw it out in the public out there.
For somebody else to catch the ball and run with it.
No, somebody else to mess it up. Somebody else to mess it up. I have criticized that South Shore project over there by saying that project's been going for years and years. A lot of money has been pumped into it.
It's their renovation, not even renovation. It's their bit of construction, and it hasn't been open yet.
Even if it's open, how many Bermudians can afford to buy it? If unless it's us taxpayers paying for it and then handing it over to Bermudians, because a project has to be planned, executed, and completed. Because every time you borrow money, this is the taxpayer's money. You're taking it from the taxpayer and putting it there, but the government has to borrow the money out of the government budget. The taxpayer's money. But if you were an ordinary person, by now the bank would have closed you down, taken the place over. and dispose of it to somebody else who's going to finish it. So we want to be able to solve this problem, and I think I've got the formula for solving this problem. As you know, I built 40% of the homes on the island. Mm-hmm. And I've done a study on the demographics of housing in Bermuda on my private basis. And I see now how we can have a formula for doing this. If I were having conversations with the government, which I tried to do years ago, that's why I'm here now pushing independent members, they dismiss you as though, oh, it's our turn now. We don't want to hear from you. And the end result is nothing got done. You know, if you need collaboration, cooperation, and everybody's opinion counts. Mm-hmm. Now, you can't use everybody's opinion, mm-hmm. but you got to respect everybody's. And if something sounds logical, you need to take it to the next course. Mm-hmm. Our problem is not inflation. Our problem is not the cost. Our problem is our attitude. We can turn the clock back because things in New York are expensive, shipping is expensive, and they're passed back down to Bermuda. If we throw our hands up and say, well, blame it on inflation, well, we'll always spend time just blaming it on something that we can do nothing about. There are things we can do to bring up. You realize that in 1979, 80, inflation in Bermuda was 22%. 22%. Inflation in America was 18%. And it went down from that down to 2%, 3%. Why? Because the economy was expanded. And as the economy expanded and as the supply was made more readily available in many ways, then the cost dissipated. And over time, we played catch up. So we've been this course before, but we don't have the leadership addressing that course. We did it before, and we can do it again. And that's why I said, I know what has to be done, and I'm not going to sit back and see my people suffer when I feel as though I know how to get it done. And that's why I suggested the independent approach. I would have gone and joined one of the parties to get it done. But I realized that neither of them are listening. You know, you sit down with them, you talk to them. Oh no, I want to be in charge. I want you to tell me what you know, but I want to be in charge. When they've never run anything, really, let's be honest about it. They've never been faced with bankruptcies and be able to correct it. I was faced in my own business 4 times with bankruptcy, massive bankruptcy. Each time I had to figure out how to get out of that position. And I was able to get out of it because I had to think through the process. And each time I came out better as a result of it. You know, today I put myself in a position where I don't have to think about bankruptcy. Everything is in order, in place. But if AI comes along and decides it's going to be a disruptor, which we think it is going to be a disruptor, we could be right back where we started from in 1980, 81, 82, where the business of international business, 40 years, we've had a nice run. We could be right back where we started from, have inflation, and a shrinkage of business. We've already noticed that in the commercial business and the national business, most of the requests, the people used to want 5,000, 10,000 square feet. Now they're asking for 2,500, 3,000 square feet. So the process psychologically has already started. Now, sure enough, as we try to reach further and further to get more business here, that's the only thing that's keeping us going and keeping us up. But at one of these stages, it has to be where everybody starts to say, I mean, we saw XL's building up for sale. One time, XL occupied all of that building, all of it. Nowadays, you've got Ernst & Young there, you've got a couple other companies there. So what you think is there isn't there as it was before.
Right.
Excel obviously doesn't have the
Ace on one side and Axel on the other.
well, that's different. ACE is a separate building.
Yeah.
But you've got AIGs to occupy all of the AIG building. It's not the same AIG that it was before. So there's a subtle process taking place, but because new companies come in, but then they can vanish because they get bought up and get consolidated and everything else. So we're not thinking, you can't think because everything looks good, it's going to stay good. It can change overnight and boom, you get hit. Now, if you've got inflation and you get hit by shrinkage, what happens? You fall down. You can't carry that weight. So I'm saying that let's change our formula now so that we can ease some of that pressure that will come to Bermuda. We're stuck here. We have no natural resources. We have a limited amount of space, and yet we have to do so much to look after our people. And these big houses, as I know, 'cause I own one, the maintenance cost of these things that the average Bermudian can't afford. So if a foreigner leaves his house, you will not enjoy that, even if he discounts it to you by 2/3. You still got to pay the maintenance. Still goes on. The taxes, the insurance, which insurance today is killing. And I see now we have very little competition. The government hasn't even told the public really what's going on with Argus and with Fire Marine.
Yeah,
So you have Argus and Fire Marine now that control
Merge.
big part of our insurance, owned by foreigners, by the way.
Wow.
Right? Capital G is the only one. CG is the only one that is owned by the Gibbonses, but the rest of it's owned by foreigners. Where's the dividends going? Make money, you pay, I take. You pay, I take.
Wow.
We used to be, you pay, and we share because I pump the money back into Bermuda's economy. That's why the banks don't have the cash, Bermuda cash, to loan out. Because the dividend now, instead of going from all these companies, law firms, accounting firms, going into Bermuda economy, is going out. And, sure, we got a massive growth, and we need bringing in more foreigners. But if the families at home, they send the money home.
Doesn't benefit Bermuda.
We don't have a model of economic development for Bermuda that says when this happens, we look at it and see what impact it does have on Bermuda people. What we have a model is, it simply says, I need something, I need to borrow money, or government needs to borrow money. So the best thing I can do is to cooperate with the powers that be that might loan me some money. Or else I have to cut services. And the services in Bermuda have been cut. We know they're cut down. And yet, at the same time, the demand for more services increases. Tourism used to represent 19-20% of our GDP a few years ago. And now it's down, I understand, to 15%. Yet we keep talking about, this tourism this and tourism that. But the result is, the statistics speak for themselves. The amount of tourists we've got and the spending they're spending.
It's very little.
It's very little.
Yeah.
So, again, we tell the big lie by negligence. We don't tell it. We just simply state what it is without saying, here are the consequences. If our GDP is $6 billion, if 15% of that actually rolls around, or 10% of that is 600 million, so you can see that it's not a big amount of money that the tourism really is bringing by the time you get through paying for all the material and services and everything else. The residual from that is very small. So we're hanging on one string of international business to prop us up, which about 90% plus of the dollars, the US dollars earned now, are from international people. And they can pull that puppet string any way they want to pull it. And we'll have to dance to that tune after a while because we have no means of it ourselves. That's not the Bermuda I knew. Sorry. It's not the Bermuda I knew. We fought for social justice. We fought for political justice. We removed the social. Nowadays, you can go to any place, restaurant, and hotels, and you don't. If somebody, you got the Human Rights Act. If somebody offends you, you got all those things that took away the atrocities of apartheid. We also got political apartheid removed by the removal of the impediments. One time was used to have people had one person had one vote and plus a plus vote if they own land. And since blacks didn't own a lot of the land, that's how they control things. We got rid of that. We then changed the system by which one man, one vote of equal value. That's why you have 36 constituencies out there, all with a similar type of numbers of voters in each one of them, so that you have an equal proportionate representation. So we got rid of political apartheid in Bermuda. But what happened when the national heroes of the past, the people who fought for political justice, social justice, because we had economic activity, particularly in the black community and the white community, in owning their own businesses, doing things, paying dividends, having money to put around the community. Now we have economic apartheid in Bermuda. Very few people or Bermudians have any creation of wealth. It's all done by the foreigner. And the few Bermudians that do have the creation of wealth, they accumulate it. I'm not sure what they're doing with it. But I don't think they're pumping it back into our community. I was shocked the other day. In fact, last night, I needed some cash. I usually go downtown and get it. I stopped by the bank at Bermuda on Church Street. So I've been very specific so people don't accuse me of that. And I try to get a certain amount of money out the bank. And they tell me if the note came up, they put a limit on the amount of money you can get out of it. Now I want to go downtown and see whether I can, whether that limit's any higher than the one that was on Church Street over there, Church and Court Street. Little things send us signals. You know, if you want to go abroad now, you can only get so much money out. You can't. You don't. This idea and I was one of the founding fathers of the Bermuda Monetary Authority, and also oversaw the development of the plan for the economic activity for Bermuda in terms of creating a currency. So I have an intimate relationship with that whole process. We had foreign exchange control. We did away with foreign exchange control because we were earning so much dollars. People could go ahead and spend them, and if you want to get $100,000 or $50,000, you can get it. It's not that easy now. They only allow you so much money to send. So things are closing in on the Bermudian, not the foreigner, because he can get paid now in foreign bank accounts.
Send everything out.
So you got two Bermudians that are distinctively different. And unfortunately, you got people Bermudians working in these places. They're also enjoying those comforts that the foreigner enjoys because he can get paid he can have a foreign bank account, whether Chase Manhattan or whatever, Deutsche Bank or Credit Suisse. They can have that bank account and have their salaries paid into that. And if the wife is working, live off the wife's salary and have But the average Bermudian now has got himself tied into a twist of so there are two different economies working now, two different economies. One is privileged, that it's fluent, flexible. We want to make money in the foreign, and every time you read the newspaper, pick up the newspaper, You see with promotion and credibility and ratings and everything else. I remember one time we were proud of Bermudian making progress in things they were doing. When I read the wanted ads for employment, if we had to bring a foreigner in, Bermudian company, I see now all this is being done by foreign companies. If it wasn't for the foreign company workers, that wouldn't exist anymore, because there wouldn't be the adverts in it to carry it. I'm not saying the foreign companies, they should do it. They come here, they offer an environment, we jump into it and let them do what they want to do, and we want to keep them here. But we also should be looking out for the Bermuda, and that's what the government's supposed to be about. The government's supposed to be about creating economic activity, creating social conditions, creating justice conditions, that the Bermudian gets a fair share of what Bermudian activity is all about. When I spoke years ago to the government about setting up a trust, that any activity, the trust should get some money, and that every Bermudian should have a share of that trust. And that the people at the low end would get the most of it, and it would be proportioned. But we'd create a dividend every quarter that would be accruing to the Bermudian that would help to top up the salaries at the lower level. In fact, I even talked to unions and said to them, if you give this minimum wage and you give it to everybody, all you're doing is giving the foreigner who's working here, domestic workers and everything, more money. They said, no, they can go home. They're saving money. They're smart, and we're dumb. They're saving money by working in Bermuda at that high level now that we've created this minimum wage. They send the money home, they buy a house, 2 houses, educate their children. And at the age of 50 years old, 55, they can retire and go back home and live like a king. The Bermudian, on the other hand, still can't afford to pay the bills, can't retire. If they do retire, they can't pay the medical help, they can't pay for their food. They have to make a distinction between eating or paying for the medical help. Rents here are going up. That foreigner now owns a house or two, and whether it's in Philippines or in Portugal or whatever the case might be, or Azores, whatever the case might be, they can go back and put their feet up and relax, and we can stay here and suffer. Now, I don't blame the foreigner. We have allowed ourselves to get into
Give
this.
them the opportunity.
Well, we allowed ourselves to get into this really bad situation. Now, I don't offer a panacea for all this. All I'm saying is we've got to start looking at how to look after Bermudian. It's not going to be easy to stop it. It's like a train or almost like an aircraft carrier. You can put the brakes on, or you can stop the engine, but she'll still keep moving. And if you try to turn it around, it takes a long time to turn it around. But at some stage, the other, you got to say, we've got to turn this big ship around. It's going in the wrong direction. And that's what I'm saying to Bermudians today is the fact that we have a date with destiny. We have a time when we should rise to the occasion, when we should say enough of party politics that is only serving the party and the people involved with the top end of the party. Is a time when we should be saying we want change, we want something different. And when we get that something different, we expect to see things become different. If we don't take that leap of faith and continue on our journey that we're on now, we will feel the consequences for generations yet unborn. Because it's like that aircraft carrier. You can turn these things around overnight. And the world moves on inextricably. It has a passion for going forward. And it will not stop because you have yourself neglected yourself and your self-needs. So that's why the independent movement is to serve the people, because it is for the people and by the people and of the people. And it's not for the party purpose, it's for the people purpose. I look forward to having more conversations with you, because I think we need to form a partnership that says, let's make that change happen.
So, John, before we close, brief moment. We've lost an icon here in Bermuda, Mr. Brownlow Place, which turned 108 yesterday. He passed 6 hours before he celebrated his birthday. And I told his family, in my eyes, he was still 108 because somewhere around the world, Australia, he had turned 108. I mean,
Oh, yes.
Mr. Place was incredible. What, 108 years old?
That's
oh
right.
My God!
Well,
we need to celebrate and what might you say to this family and to Bermuda on this icon?
well, you see, I was very fortunate that I grew up around Mr. Place, John G. Bassett's mineral water factory. I think he married one of the daughters. He was a very special individual in the fact that he looked after his health, was very methodical. He was not a big man, so he kept himself in good shape.
Yeah.
He set an example to all of us. I'll be 90 next year.
Yes, sir.
That it's not about age. It's about what you do. If you spend your time doing things that are right, they'll come out right. And he had a formula for doing things right. And I've looked at many people who you read about who've reached that age, over 100. And they all say the same thing. It's what you do through the course of your life determines what happens to you.
In the end.
And he obviously, as a man of principle, of man who had a clear conscience, you know, he worked at the recorder for years. He worked around the printing industry, which sets off smut and stuff like that. And obviously, it didn't affect him as it affected some other people and so forth. And so I say to his family, you've had somebody who has lived this journey of longevity and grace, and he was a very graceful person. And gratitude, because he always expressed how thankful he is to be alive and to be given the purpose that he has been able to fulfill in his job and after his work and so forth. And, you know, he didn't live in the most elaborate environment. He lived up in Happy Valley. But the common man with a common purpose, a common interest, and a caring attitude to others that gets then passed back to yourself. I really would love to see myself living that type of life, because I think that way we can be always an example, and I commend his family. Sad that he missed that. But it's not the time you live, it's what you do with the time you live.
Yes, sir.
And his time was setting the example of what longevity can give you. You know, and you have a few other people out there who also are, you know, like Canon Francis. You know,
Just Sunday up in some of the cricket grounds, there was a lady there, 103.
Exactly. There was some of my relatives who are, you know, up to 100 and so forth. I have a grandmother that lived to be 96, you know, and she never had one child in the hospital. And when she got sick, she lived out there right there by Gorham's Lumber Company out there.
Yeah,
she walked to the hospital, and 6 weeks later she died. Wow. She was a tough old lady, she was. Wow. I hope I have some of those genes in me that she has, but you never know. And by the time you find out, it's too late. So, again, Bermuda should celebrate the life of this man. Celebrate the life of this man. And the examples that he set. And that we should make sure that we encourage others, but we can't do it with the deprivation that's occurred. He lived in a period in which people had a chance to get a house. People had time to put food on the tables. People had time to be with their families and to share and to do things. And as edge of cup match. Take a look at cup match. Two teams playing against each other. But at the same time, they're friends. But everybody wants to win. So we've got to get winners and friends and family together. What we do is, it's this party versus that party. It's this individual versus that. Adversarial brings death almost, because it brings acidic environments that almost unknowingly it helps to destroy us. We've got to get away from this acidic environment that we're in, so that we then help young people to realize the fact that there's some value to life. We've stripped out the value to life. Anybody who can commit these murders the way they've been being committed, destroying people that they know, and almost doing it knowing they might even get caught, or else they will do away with themselves, means there's something fundamentally wrong. That you can ignore it because it didn't happen in your neighborhood, didn't happen to a relative of yours. You can ignore it until it does happen to a relative. It does happen in your neighborhood. It could happen to you, because after a while, society will turn fully on itself. It turns partially in itself, against itself, and then it then starts to spill out elsewhere. I've made predictions before. If we don't correct it, as I said before, about the repressiveness of the young black male, that we will have these problems. I made it in the House of Assembly when I was there, and I got criticized for it, saying, you are denigrating the young black male. I was not denigrating. I was warning society. You can't keep beating up on them, making them feel as though they are the worst part of society, filling them up with casemates on simple things, drug charge, marijuana charges, and all this type of stuff, and then expect for them to take responsibility. And when they come out, they have nowhere to go.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that on our next broadcast.
Okay.
All right. Cup match is coming. We're going to talk about that too next week.
All right. Cup match next week.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, let's talk next Tuesday.
Yes, sir. So there you have it, people. We want to thank you for joining us this morning. Speaking with Sir John, we're going to talk again next week. It's Cup Match week, and from Sunday until the following Sunday, everything is Cup Match. Bermuda literally shuts down and goes into Cup Match mode. So we want to encourage you to have a good weekend. Be safe. Look out for the next person. If you're going to drink, don't drive, my usual motto. And we want to thank you for joining us in this one-on-one with Sir John. We're going to pass this up to this is going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel that's at TNN BDA. That's on our YouTube channel. Go up and have a look. Subscribe, and we want to thank you for your support. Sir John, have a good day.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you again on Tuesday.
See you Tuesday.